Hey, what's up? John Sonmez here from SimpleProgrammer.com. So I wanted to create a video today about choosing a specialty. This is definitely a topic that I talk about a lot, and my thoughts on this have changed over the years. They've actually become a little bit more refined, and I've gotten a little bit bolder in my recommendations of choosing a specialty. If you want sort of the full background on everything I've talked about on this subject on my YouTube channel, you can check out the playlist here on choosing a specialty. And of course, one of the best ways to take this and put this into action, what I'm going to teach you in this video and what we've talked about and what's in those other videos, is to learn how to build a brand and market yourself, because the specialty is what's going to help you to be able to do that. So you can check out my course on how to market yourself as a software developer. But what I'm going to talk about today doesn't really just apply to software developers. I want to talk about this from a more generalistic viewpoint. That's funny. Since I'm going wide and I'm talking about special, yeah, whatever. Okay, so anyway, I want to talk about this at a more general viewpoint of whatever career, whatever field you're in. Specialty or specialization is really, really important, especially today. In society today, a specialist is much more valuable than a generalist in most cases. It doesn't mean you can't be a Renaissance man. I like to pride myself on being somewhat of a Renaissance man myself, but it does mean that you do need to have specific specialties or specifications, something you're known for, some angle, something you can market yourself and brand yourself around, and that can broaden and that can change over time, right? But that's what I want to talk about, is the sort of the dynamics of this. So first of all, let's talk about why you would want to have a specialty. And I've talked about this a few times before. You can hear about this in both the Complete Software Developer's Career Guide, which if you haven't picked up a copy, make sure you pick up a copy, or Soft Skills, the Software Developer's Life Manual. I cover it from a couple of different angles in those books, a little differently. But in general, right, if you think about this, the reason why you want to have a specialty is that you want to seem a lot more competent and like the go-to person for whatever the field happens to be or whatever someone's looking for, right? The more aligned that something is with what we're looking for, the better fit we feel it is, and the more confidence we have in that person or that service or that offering, right? I've used this example a few times, but I'll use this again, which is, let's suppose that you had a problem with your garbage disposal, okay? It was broken, and this is probably a job, you'd probably look and you'd say, okay, I need to find a plumber, right? And if you go and you look in I guess you're not looking in the yellow pages anymore, but if you look online, if you're searching for plumbers near me or whatever it is, right, and you see someone that is ABC Plumbing Services, but then you see someone else who is Mr. Garbage Disposal Fix-It Man, right, who are you going to call, right? It's pretty obvious that more than likely you're going to call Mr. Garbage Disposal Fix-It Man, right? Same thing we could say, if let's up the stakes here, right? This is another example that I like to use is, let's suppose that you're being accused of murder. Okay? No, you got to find a lawyer. You got to find a criminal lawyer, right? In fact, that's one level of specialty, right? A criminal lawyer, right? You're not just going to look for lawyers, right? I mean, you got some options. You can find, maybe you see one law firm that handles everything. We handle everything. We can do whatever. We know tax law. We know criminal law. We know whatever, divorce law and estate law and all of these things, right? And so, or intellectual property law. So they list all these different areas of law, and they say, we do it all. So just come to us and we'll take care of you. Okay, now I'm not saying that there's not any appeal to that, but I'm saying that if you are being accused of murder, you're probably gonna not go with that law firm, right? Instead, you're probably gonna go to a lawyer that says, all I do, this is my job, all I do, all I live and breathe and eat, all I care about is getting people off of a murder rap. I'm not even going to say innocent people, because let's face it, maybe you did do it, and maybe you just care about getting off of the murder rap, okay? So I live for this. I'm the best that there is in the world at this, right? And I know how to get this done. I have, you see what I'm saying? Like that specialty of being especially a criminal defense attorney who specializes in beating murder raps. That's what you want, right? That's who you're calling, right? And when your life is on the line here. So from just the perspective of the market, right? In marketing yourself and getting, whether it be a job, whether it be clients, or even as an entrepreneur, right? Any of those things, right? Any of those three things are going to benefit by specialization, right? And while generalization does have some value, right? And you should be well-rounded. You should know about multiple areas. Like I said, I have no problem with you being a Renaissance man. You need to pick at least one specialization, right? So that you can market yourself in that way and you can get that benefit of being a specialist, right? Again, we look at specialty stores, right? Think about it, right? There's a lot of specialty. Have you ever walked into a specialty store, right? When you walk into a specialty store, you know that the prices are going to be higher. It's a premium. Have you ever seen those candy stores with the sugar, right? It's friggin' ridiculous prices, right? Why? Because they're a specialty store, right? If you go to a specialty store, you're most likely going to see higher prices. But specialty stores also succeed more often, right? They're more likely to succeed because people assume, well, that's the best. I should go to this specialty store, right? Have you been to Guitar Center, right? Guitar Center, I used to love to go to Guitar Center when I played guitar, and it was because it's a specialty store, right? I don't want to go and buy an instrument at Walmart. I want to go to Guitar Center to do it because it's the experience, right? So we place a lot of value on specialty, and we also there's a bias, there's a cognitive bias that we have as humans that we don't believe people can be the master of all things. We feel like if someone's good at this, they can't be good at this, right? And this is just how people operate. So if you want to make more money in your career, right? If you want people to respect you more, if you want to build a reputation faster, you need to specialize, you need to pick a specialty. That's why it's so important, right? And you can see it from your own choices, right? And people who do specialize, if you look at doctors, and I'll give you one last example, one last argument here, is doctors, specialty doctor, who makes more? General practitioner doctors, right, GPs, or specialty doctors. Specialty doctors do, right? Heart surgeon, brain surgeon, all these, a specific surgeon who works in a specific type of brain surgery, right? They're going to make the most money, more than someone who's a generalist, right? So it makes a lot more sense. You know, you go to school more to specialize, of course, if you're a doctor, but specialization makes a lot of sense, especially today in society, especially with the complexity in so many things, right? Having a broad and general knowledge is not enough today, and it's not enough to convince other people of your value. So let's talk about picking the specialty. How do you go through this process? Okay, so the very first thing that you want to do when you pick a specialty, right, is, well, this is the overarching thing that you need to think about, is what can I do that can make me the #1 best in the world? What can I be the #1 best in the world at? This is a high bar. I know this, and I didn't always say this, but I'm going to stick to this now because I believe that anyone can pick something that they can be the #1 best in the world at, or at least have a claim, a geographic claim to that. And it's all about slicing thin enough, right? So you got to be thinking at this level, because if you look at how things are distributed, especially in the world today, right? You know, Paretos Law, 80-20 principle. I think I've talked about Paretos Law. I think I actually did a video saying that not everything falls into Paretos Law. But if you know Paretos Law, okay, and maybe I didn't do a video, maybe I should do one, you know that 20%, it basically says that 20% of whatever, it results in 80% of the result, right? So 20% of the people in the world have 80% of the wealth, right? This applies to a lot of different things. And where it really applies, where you should be concerned, is that in the area of specialty, right, is that the whole, you know, if you can be the top, right, the top winner, right, if you played poker, right, when they do the distributions of the pay, like the first place person gets like 50% of the whole pool, right? So in any kind of marketplace, right, if you're selling books on Amazon, if you are competing for services, right, it doesn't matter what you're doing, right, if you're applying for jobs, right, whatever it is, the top 20% of people, right, or who's ever in the top is going to get 80%. And it actually distributes even further. You might say that the top 1% of the top 1 is like 90%. It's a really, really big distribution. Like, so winner takes all. This is what we're talking about. It's winner takes all here. So you want to be the winner so that you can take all, right? You don't want to be in second place or third place position. It's no good. You're competing there and you're not getting a lion's share of what's available there. So this is why it's so, so important. So let's talk about how you can actually do this. So how can you pick a specialty regardless of what field you're in? So first of all, you want to think about the concept. Again, I'm going to give you a lot of theory here, and then we're going to put some more practicality and pragmatism to this. But you want to be, you know, the ideal thing to be is to be, and I've talked about this quite a few times, but you want to be the big fish in the small pond, right? Because, and it has to be a big enough pond to have enough market, right? So, you know, there's no point in specializing in something that doesn't have enough depth, where there's not enough customers or clients or jobs or whatever it is that you're trying to do. Now, most of the time people underestimate how big the world is. So I'm going to say that don't worry about that. The size of the pond, don't worry about that until you've proven definitely the pond is too small. Instead, focus on looking for small ponds and look how you can fucking dominate that, right? One of my favorites, Grant Cardone, he always talks about dominating your space. He says, don't compete, dominate, right? I love this guy. I love his fucking attitude. It's awesome, right? But dominate, that's what you want to do, is you want to dominate. So you want to pick ponds that are fairly small that you know you can come in and crush this shit, right? So there's a ton of them in whatever field you're in. You can always find something to be number one best in the world at, right? You just got to think about this and think about, okay, how can I say something small enough? How can I find a small enough pond where I can dominate this? No one is doing this, right? There's no competition. You can dominate that. Or the competition is so weak that if you hone in and you really focus and specialize, that you can become the best. And I've done this in a lot of areas in my life, not just in specialization, but when I was doing Pluralsight courses, which you can check out my videos on my Pluralsight story if you're interested on that. You can, by the way, click the card, or it's in the description below, by the way, if you want to watch video. I always point to other videos if you're new to the channel. So in that, when I became a Pluralsight author, I said, how can I be the fucking best Pluralsight author? How can I be, so I can make more courses than anyone else, right? And that domination, by achieving that #1 spot, it allowed me to make millions of dollars in Pluralsight by doing that, right? I did the same thing with my blog, right? I'm doing the same thing with YouTube here, right? I'm trying to dominate this space. As far as self-development, personal development for software developers, I pretty much dominate the space. I'm doing 2 videos to 3 videos a day, right? Again, dominating is what is going to help you a lot. So, okay, so now we've got sort of the theory here. So where do we go from this? How do you actually pick a specialization, okay? Now, this is going to depend on your field and what you're trying to specialize in, but there's a few different things that you can do here. So one of the things that you can do is, like I said, is you can just logically slice things thin, right? So what, if you're, let's say that you're a software developer, okay, because most of you are. If you're a software developer, right, you could pick a programming language, and then you could pick within that programming language maybe a framework, and then maybe you can pick a way that you're working on that framework, right? Some way that you can slice that again. And it could be, it could be slicing it from the technology down to a smaller granular level of technology, okay, right? And in your field what that is, right? And that it doesn't just apply to software developers. You can just keep on going down. But it could also be like a cross-cutting one. So at one point I had a podcast. I stopped doing the podcast, and it was called Get Up and Code, okay? And the whole concept was that I was combining programming and fitness. So I was doing a cross-section of programmers that are interested in fitness, okay? And this dovetails right into my next way of picking a specialty or specializing, which is to pick a particular audience that you're going to serve, right? That's a very small slice. It's certain attributes. Again, when I picked programmers, right, who were into fitness or interested in fitness, that's probably all programmers to some degree, but who's really obsessed about this? These are the people that they're going to look at Get Up and Code. They're going to look at that podcast, right? It still gets, I stopped making it. It still gets plenty of hits per month because it aligns perfectly. They're like, wow, I am a programmer and I love fitness. Wow, I can't believe someone created this just for me, right? So that's a good specialization. So you can slice that way as well, looking at the particular audience. So if you think about it, right, there's an infinite way to slice this. And you can combine the two, right? So if you look at maybe, let's say dentists, okay? Let's say that you're going to serve dentists in some way, but maybe it's going to be dentists working in low-income neighborhoods. They have a special set of needs, right? You can specialize in helping them in some way, right? And then you can specialize in how you're helping them in some way, right? And so you think about this, right? How many Lego blocks do you have here? How many pieces, how many ways can you serve people and create value for people and slice it thin enough so that you're the expert? You can be the #1 best in the world at this particular thing, okay? And then you can always expand out, right? Don't worry about pigeonholing yourself too small. But you want to think about these things, right? That you're gonna dive really deep into, and you can slice it multiple ways, whether it be from figuring out, how can you make the pool smaller, right? How can you make the pond smaller so that you can be that big fish, okay? Another thing to think about here when choosing a specialty is, and this is important as well, which is what are you interested and passionate about? Because when you specialize, you're going to be going deep, okay? Now, and notice that I didn't say what are you an expert in already, or what do you have deep knowledge in, right? Because then a lot of beginners get confused here and they're like, well, I'm not an expert. I can't specialize because I'm not an expert in anything. No, but you're going to become one, right? It really, if you slice thin enough, okay, I'll tell you this, if you slice thin enough, you can become an expert on something in a very short amount of time, right? Because it's a very small scope of what you need to learn. You can pick up a tip for this. I have a course called 10 Steps to Learn Anything Quickly. I'm going to plug a couple of courses in this because I think these are important pieces, right? But go check out that course and you can see in there that I talk about scoping things. The secret to learning quickly, right? The secret to picking up a skill very, very quickly, right, is it's almost an illusion, right? Because there is no hack. Some people buy the course, by the way, and they're like, dude, I need a refund because I didn't learn, there was no magical hack to learn things quickly. I'm like, what the fuck do you expect? Do you think that I am going to like tell you how to plug your brain into the matrix? I'm sorry, that doesn't exist. There's no pill you're gonna take, there's no magic here, but the illusion is the scope, right? And so when you narrow the scope, this is one of the key things. I'm giving you away one of the key things of the course. There's more to it, of course, but is narrowing the scope, right? Because when you try to learn some big, huge thing, that's going to take you a fucking long time, and you're not going to use all that. It doesn't make sense. Why learn all this stuff that you're not going to use? Instead, if you focus on what you need to know, a very, very thin slice, you can go really deep and become a super expert in that. So pick the thing that you are going to be at least somewhat passionate about, that you're going to be able to go super deep in. And like I said, it doesn't have to do with, you don't have to know it now, because it's not going to take you very long when you pick an expertise that's really, really small. So I'll give you, just look at an example here, right? Let's suppose I was just at the dentist, just talking like orthodontic, and there's a lot of different orthodontic options out there, right? There's like Invisalign, and there's braces that are clear, and there's a whole bunch of different things, right? So let's say you just picked one specific thing, like let's say you want to become an expert in Invisalign, right? You've heard of Invisalign. That's so much smaller scope, right, than becoming an expert in orthodontics in general. That's a lot of information. But let's suppose that you're going to be an entrepreneur and you're going to write some guides about Invisalign and all the pros and cons and the benefits and how to best do it, and how people have success or failures or everything you need to know about it, right? You could specialize and you could learn all of that information, all that there is out there, in a very short amount of time. Okay, it wouldn't take you very long. But if you want to learn everything about orthodontics and dental, or dentistry in general, man, how much information is that, right? You see what I'm saying? So if you pick something, make sure that you pick something that you're willing to go that deep in, right? Especially when we're talking about technologies. Some people pick things that they're not. And again, you don't have to be super passionate about the thing, okay? But you have to be able to force yourself to go at that level of depth that other people aren't, because that's what creates the specialty. That's what makes you #1 best in the world, and that's what creates the expertise, okay? So then the final thing that I'll say here in prepping this and in figuring out what your specialty is, right? And I'll tell you this, right? Let me tell you this, okay? Brainstorm, okay? Brainstorm ideas, okay? Think about all the things that you like, that you're passionate about, that you would want to go to the level of depth. Let's start there, okay? And then think about how you can slice things to make the pond small enough. And every time, right, figure out, how can you slice it as far as going down to a more granular level, like I said, right? And how can you slice it as far as cross-cutting or picking out pieces of an audience or a specific type of person or audience that would appeal to you, right? I'll give you another great example of specialization, something I really want to do. There's this guy, damn, I forgot his name now. I can't think of it, but he has this, and I haven't done this program, but it really appealed to me. It was a really interesting program. He has this program that John White, I think his name is John White. It's called like Warrior Week, right? And it's like this badass type of thing. It's designed, and the way he markets this is he says it's for businessmen, entrepreneurs, married businessmen, like, you know, who want to like basically get their ass kicked, right? Fucking want to be like jacked and go through, you know, fucking hell, right? Put themselves through hell. I mean, that's not exactly how he markets it like in words, but in video he does, right? And so that he's got a very clear, specific message. So he's cut the demographic, right? It's not just about fucking being masculine and being a man. It's about for married men who are entrepreneurs in business, right? And who actually want to get their ass, who actually want to, at the end of this week, get punched in the fucking face, right? And do a fight, right? So that's like, that hones in on me pretty tightly. I'm like, yeah, I fucking really want to do this shit, right? But you see what I'm saying? It excludes a lot of people. So he's picked a very small slice to target, and he can hit them with such a message. He could be the best in the world at providing this experience of being punched in the face, right? You see what I'm saying, right? And that's the value of it. So I went a little bit off track, but essentially you want to brainstorm all this stuff, okay? You want to brainstorm what you're passionate about, what you would be willing to go in depth into, what you can, all the pools that you can make, all these ponds that you can create, whether you slice it, and you can slice it technically, like I said, to go into more and more detail, more granular, and you can slice it vertically, and you can do both of these things, right? And come up with a bunch of combinations. And when you're done coming up with all these combinations, okay, then go through and look at the feasibility of this. What makes sense? Where is their greatest market demand? If you want to make money, if you want to get a better job, if you want to be independent and do, you know, professional services or consulting, or if you want to be an entrepreneur and serve some kind of market and you want to do this, then look and see where is there money and where is there demand, okay? Where are people not filling this, but there's enough people that want this, okay? And that would be how I would decide between them, right? Again, I'm going to say that most people don't realize how big the market for pink unicorn paraphernalia is, right? I mean, I think that if you just specialize and you said, I am going to have a store that is all the pink unicorns, all different variations of pink unicorns, posters about pink unicorns, pink unicorn lollipops, everything you want, every book that I know about on pink unicorns, I think you could be damn successful. I think that you underestimate how many people there are interested in the cross-section of what your specialization is. So you probably are not specializing low enough, right? And you can always back out, right? It's easier to go down really deep in your specialization and then expand out in concentric circles, right? If you look at Simple Programmer, you look at what I do, I've done that. I started out, you know, and I didn't have a plan for this like I'm giving you, right? I didn't personally set out to specialize, but I ended up becoming, you know, where I'm at now, where it's sort of it's a broad circle. I've got a big pond, which is personal development for software developers, but I can move to that pond because I can dominate that pond, which I am doing, right, in this space, because I'm the one, you know, I've got enough of a foothold here that it's the incumbent, you know, I'm an incumbent, right? People can't come and they can't take this throne very easily. I've got so much, I'm so far ahead of the second place person, right? And that's what you want to do. And maybe I'll leap to, see, I'm actually ready to leap to a bigger pond. And eventually, that's what you do. But first, you got to pick your specialization. So hopefully, this has been helpful. Has this been helpful to you to pick your specialization? If so, you know, thumbs up, say yes in the comments. I appreciate that. And I want to leave you with one last thing here, which is now I'm forgetting what I was going to leave you with here. Let's see here. So we talked about specialization, picking a specialization. Switching specialization later. You can, of course, always do that, and you can have multiple specializations. But yeah, I think that's good. I think if you do this, right, and if you actually take the steps and do this, that you're going to see a huge, huge benefit, right? Most people won't take the action to do this. So there you go. Hopefully you find this useful. Like I said, if you did, you know, leave a thumbs up, leave a comment, say yes, this was great. If you have some questions, leave some questions below, and make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Click the bell so you don't miss any videos. I'll talk to you next time. Take care.